Hello YouTubers. Today I want to talk to you about the future of software engineering. I've been talking to some of my friends the other day and this idea popped in my head. I was thinking, you know, um, the way how we develop software today is very significantly different than the way how we used to develop software in the past. And it is pretty obvious that the way how software is going to be used and developed in the future is going to be definitely different than it is today. I wanted to talk about some thoughts I had about how I think software is going to look like in the next 10 to 20 years. We already are seeing things in the industry where new architecture pattern, new technologies, new ideas around how to process data, how to view software and interact with software is significantly changing. And what does that mean to software engineers today? What does that mean to someone who just graduated college? What does that mean to someone who have been in the industry for a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades? How is this going to be, how is this going to work for us, right? So, in my opinion, the traditional MVC pattern isn't going away. There will always be a component that deals with data, something where we get to store information and retrieve that information and update that information. This is always going to be there. The typical business logic, something that takes the data and does something with it, is still going to be there. The interfaces are still going to be there, the views. The reason why this pattern um, is very profoundly important, and it's not that easy to get rid of it. People will say MVVC or MVVM, whatever. At the end of the day, something that has data, something that has the logic, and something that has the interface that allows people or programs or services to communicate with it, that's not going anywhere. So if this pattern is still going to be around, the ways how these components are developed and how people are going to interact with it, whether they are just normal users or software engineers or data engineers or data scientists, is going to change so much in the future. Let me show you here a little. It's a little terrible, but it actually captures the idea. Uh, you notice here that uh, the world is starting to move away slowly but surely from relational databases into more of big data. NoSQL, big data, document based, and all the analytics and all the science that goes around it. Is moving a lot towards, with the increase of everything exponentially, um, the world is definitely moving towards big data patterns. The the normal traditional store app where you get to save something and retrieve something slowly but surely is just going away, and enterprises and big corporates are more adaptive now of the idea of big data, something that can handle data that has the velocity that's coming all the time, something that has a volume, it's so big, uh, and so on. The other thing is, what we deal with today of handling data by writing code and pull this from the database and then do it this way and then put it out there. I think this is going to change into AI. AI at some point is going to take care of going through the data and analyzing the data and deciding, what to do with that data. So this part here, the developers that are going to take care of developing the business logic part are going to be more concerned with developing patterns and learning methods for an AI machine that knows how to go into data and make decisions on and of its own. A good example would be today, for instance, when we let's say you have a store, that has that saves, bottles of water, for instance, and you want to have like a system that keeps a repository or inventory of how many bottles of water you have, and how much was sold, how much is defected, the bottle broke or whatever. AI is going to take care of that, and what you're actually going to do is to teach the AI to sift through the data and make the best decisions from analytics perspective to crunch that data and get the best results based on what the end user needs. In other words, I like to call it evolutionary or forever evolving software. Software that doesn't need you to go in and change something manually so the data will be processed in a certain way. No, the software itself will make the decision for itself, and it will learn by itself to look at the data and decide what to do with that data. So your interaction with the parts where your business logic is talking to the data is going to be as minimum as possible. The AI is going to be the one taking care of that part. You will be taking care of a bigger part, which is teaching the AI and developing new methods for the AI to understand things. So that's the next level. The same thing goes with the UI, the view. Today, people are dealing with web interfaces, mobile interfaces, all these little, embedded systems, the interface in the washing machine, the refrigerator, and all that stuff. I think all of that is just going to go away, and people are going to be concerned more. The UI of the future is going to be either VR, virtual reality, or augmented reality. People will not be, I think in the next 10 to 20 years, people will not really care to sit on a computer or use a cell phone in their hands to interact with some software. It's going to be either a hologram or an augmented reality system where they just could touch in the air like you see today in HoloLens or other products to interact with the software. So I won't have to sit at a desk like this to make a video on YouTube. Instead, I'll stand wherever I want and I'll start talking, and it will just record that and put it out there on the web for someone else with their VR or their AR system to view the video and start, learning, hopefully. It seems so for software engineers. What does that mean for software engineers? If you want to stay relevant in the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, you're gonna want to focus on the technologies that focus on these parts. So think about Hadoop, big data, Microsoft SQL Server starting to support, for instance, starting to support big data. You want to start learning that. You want to start learning how to deal with big data, how to deal with data science, data processing. If you're a DBA today and you want to stay relevant in a forever changing, forever growing industry, you want to look into the big data part. If you are a back-end system engineer, you're the person who writes libraries to process business logic, or you're the person who writes the logic to pull in the data and fix the data in a way that the UI will understand, put it out there. You want to start looking at AI. You want to stay relevant. You want to start looking at AI. You want to know, how to develop software that self-develops. So your software will adjust itself accordingly based on what kind of data in there. A good example would be an AI, a logic from the bottle storage, bottle store, water bottle store example that I was talking about. Your software basically will determine, how to manage the consumption of water on the system, and it will decide what best fits the end user, what will make the end user more comfortable knowing information about their storage and what they can do to improve themselves without you having to have the conversation with the user. Like today, you have to have the conversation with the user, and the user will tell you, no, I want to see the data this way, not that way. I want you to fix the date time. No, the AI will be like, okay, based on the location of this user, I'm going to display the data in the local time that fits that user, but also at the same time, I have learned that this user speaks a different language, so let me flip the language to fit that user. We won't have to program that ourselves manually. We don't have to do that. The AI will take care of these little details, while software engineers in the future will develop the big things, the big patterns that teach software to communicate and deal with these kind of problems. Coming to the view part, the UI, like I said, if you want to stay relevant, a lot of people are investing a lot on UI libraries and whatnot, and you might still need to use, you might still need those skill sets to develop augmented reality applications. But know for sure that it's not always going to be that web page that you have to look at and these buttons that you have to click on to process data. You're going to have to go a little bit further than that and think about not buttons, but an augmented reality system. It will be a switch on the wall that the person who's wearing the ER system will just go and press on it. So it's not going to be a button, it's going to be more of a shape, a 3D shape that tells the end user, this is how you're going to process this data. And that goes on for everything else, like drop-down lists, grids, and all of that. All of this is going to change into more of an augmented reality or virtual reality. So you're building an environment around the user rather than instead of building a web page with buttons and pictures on it. A web page with buttons and pictures on it is something that we have been doing since the 90s. So the world now is stepping up out of that, and people are starting to look into a more of a universal eco UI system. And you could imagine the amount of libraries and whatnot that you could imagine that developers will be developing libraries with UI tools, but augmented reality UI tools, AR UI basically, that makes it a lot easier for developers to just stick a picture on the wall, or put like a little clock, or a calculator, something that looks like a calculator and whatnot. At some point, those computers that we're using today, they will be just a part of the augmented reality UI system. So you won't be actually owning an actual physical computer. It'll be something more of a hologram or an AR component that looks a lot like a real system with the monitors and everything, but it doesn't really exist. It's something that another software engineer developed, and it would be something that people look at and say, wow, look how developers in the past used to sit down on computers and actually write code directly to a computer screen. That's so 2000. So just some thoughts around that. There are, if I were to improve myself and to keep myself very relevant and develop myself in this industry, I would look at the most common technologies, the leading technologies around these subjects, and I'd start learning with whatever what I'm leaning to is. If I'm a UI person, I want to start looking at VRs, ARs, you know, check out the AI, check out big data and data processing and data analytics. See how people today are starting to develop technologies to crunch huge amounts of data and how to make decisions based on that. So just a quick video, quick thoughts. Please write in the comment section if you have any questions. Agree or disagree, I'd like to discuss that with you, and thank you for watching.